Welcome to the show. The 100th episode of BALLBUSTERS. We're getting old, man. Can't wait for the 1000th episode of BALLBUSTERS. If you'd like to support this channel, there are PayPal and Patreon links in the info box below. Got a great presentation for you today, one of my favorites. Information. Let's head off into Discord land to see if the distinguished Nathan Oakley, my partner in crime, is here. Nathan, sir, how are you?
I'm very well. How are you? Welcome to BALLBUSTERS, all of you out in YouTube land. Good to be here. 100 shows, eh? Wow. It's Nathan, it's so exciting.
I like when you change your voices, man. You crack me up.
It is quite monumental, considering we say bi-weekly, but it isn't, because obviously there's gaps in between those bi-weekly episodes. So to get to 100 means we've been doing this for quite some time.
Yeah, and, well, we used to do them weekly, right? I can't remember when I changed that up. About a year or so ago, I changed that up, I think.
Maybe.
Remember, it was every Saturday.
Bi-weekly's better.
It is better.
Gotta have some stuff build up between episodes to talk about stuff.
What's been building up recently?
People teaching children about out-of-date 108-year wrong gravity.
Ah.
Since the last episode, it's been Matthew Learns, and then yesterday the Wired Witch, and the day before for that matter, because we've done her twice and we will continue to do so. Yeah, the cognitive dissonance that is plagued across our opponent's forum or playing field, or however I should describe it.
You talking about Jumpsuit Sally? That incoherent numpty witch?
Yeah, I mean, because she's obviously not sat in front of me, we're just responding to a video, as opposed to Matthew Learns, who was actually sat opposite me, so to speak. You know, I managed to keep my temper relatively in check. With Matthew, it wasn't. Did I actually lose my temper? Yeah, I think I called him a liar. Yeah, I did lose my temper with Matthew Learns. But the more I find out about the subject of flat Earth, and the more I find out that all roads lead to flat Earth, the more it becomes glaringly obvious that there's nefarious deceit afoot. And people like that Wired Witch, as I've named her, are a good example of that, because in a single show, she's demonstrating that she definitely understands the difference between the old-fashioned, I think she called it, out-of-date Newtonian gravity as a force, when she indoctrinates children with exactly that. So there's no way you can not know how you've got to change the description from force to non-force when you explicitly go out of your way to describe it to a very small child that really doesn't understand what you're telling them to begin with. The fact that what you're telling them in this instance is completely wrong is just outrageous. You know, it's a crusade that Anthony Riley has been on for quite a while, and he's right to be so. And this isn't really for the anti-flat earthers' ears, because they're kind of nonsensical rebuttal of, what, so you believe in Einstein then? It's like, no, you're kind of missing the point. Even by your own standards, we're pointing out, you educate the kiddies with stuff that's out of date, that's wrong, that's false, that's shown to be wrong, superseded. Why is it being taught to the kiddies then? Well, because it's part of a brainwashing process. No other reason. Because it's useful. It's just useful to indoctrinate them. That's why it's being taught to them. And it's an outrage. It really is.
Well, she lied during the whole her age difference parade. She confirmed that she lied to the previous people. Huh? It was patently obvious that she contradicted herself. I lost count. I think I counted 10, and then I just said, forget it. It's not worth counting anymore. And then she admitted she was talking about Newton. Then she went to Einstein, and then she said that they were incompatible. which I jumped in right before she said they were incompatible. I didn't know I'd forgotten that she said that. And then she said, yeah, they're incompatible. Yeah, but what did you first started teaching the kids? You know, back the couple other age echelons beforehand. It was a train wreck. I couldn't believe it. Can anyone say continuity errors?
These they're not errors, they're intentional. Not mistakes either. It wouldn't be kept in description of how to indoctrinate the kiddies, which is what that video should really be titled.
Yep.
Not the various stages of understanding gravity, but how to indoctrinate children.
Yes, sir.
There's that. I don't think Matthew Weathers / Matthew Learns had been discussed in the last Ballbusters. I think that's in between as well, is it not?
Yeah. Yep. I haven't seen Matthew. And I've been in Discord a few times. I haven't seen him. He is not returning there, unless I'm just missing him. It's possible, but he's usually one of the usual suspects over there.
From what I understand, he's quite preoccupied imagining cars crashing into each other and being in elevators that crash towards the ground or jumping off buildings, things like that. You know, general baller things that keep their minds occupied.
What, like looking at different colors?
No, what I'm hinting at is the fact that the video with the Wired Witch shows how they use the death cell, which takes me right back because it was pretty much the last thing I was looking at along with psychopathy for Flat Earth, looking at subliminal messages and the death cell, which is part of that, and hearing the techniques being used again and again and again. When they're indoctrinating the kiddies, one of the kiddies is told to imagine himself in space. This is a teenager being told that imagine yourself so that you've got no reference, just for context if the anti-flat earthers do want to follow along. Talking about you not having any way of knowing whether or not you're moving or something that flies by you is flying by you because you're stationary if you've got no other reference. So that's the description. Then that description turns into, now imagine that there's another car coming towards you and you're hurtling towards it in a different car. Like, right, so here, instill fear into this person as you give them the example so that you can give the moment of levity after the fact when you laugh about the example of flying. Same goes for the elevator. Imagine you're in an elevator, you don't know anything around you because it's a sealed box and you can't see any outside references, so you don't actually know that you're moving, even though you damn well would. But that's the example being given in a thought experiment by the Wired Witch. When she describes having the cord cut, hurtling towards imminent death in an elevator without being able to see anything around you, the person who's listening to the example pricks their ears up. Again, met with the levity of just being described how they could be Superman and fly. In zero gravity, of course. Nevertheless, the effect is the same. It's the death cell. And it's appalling. You know, the way that our world works is pretty appalling. I shouldn't laugh, but I've had time to reflect on it now, and you go, yeah, that is the world we live in, isn't it? Yeah, yeah, that's right. Shocking, isn't it? And then we move on that same episode. We talked about Plato's cave, and I kept your summary in because it was absolutely perfect. Quantum Eraser. You say, essentially, being a flat earther is a non-stop circular version of the Plato's cave allegory. You're absolutely correct. It is. You know, it's going out into a world that wants to be deceived and brainwashed by people like the Wired Witch. They're not going to take kindly to you telling them that they've just been lied to, quite overtly. A person's almost mocking you in how they lied to you. Well, what do they want to do? Well, they want to burn you.
Yes, sir. You call it the death cell. I refer to it, I look at it from a little different perspective. I call it the doofus cell.
Definitely the death cell. I mean, that's how it's called in some of the marketing materials and I can't remember the name of the book now, but there's a subliminal message handbook that is literally directly aimed at people to market things. Hold on, I'm just going to turn my volume up a bit. But the reason it's called the death cell is because it's working off your instincts. There's two of them mainly.
Yeah.
First one, most important one, is do not die. When you get to the side of the road, reason you look up and see if there's a car coming is because your body is instinctually telling you, don't get run over by that bus. It's not going to be good. Instinctually, you're telling yourself not to die. When you hear a story a car colliding, that's going to release certain chemicals in your brain that make you a lot more receptive, make you a lot more attentive to what's being said. The same is said for reproduction. Most people will be a lot more familiar with the sex cell than they are with the death cell. Death cell seems counterintuitive. It isn't when you think about it. The sex cell, on the other hand, isn't so counterintuitive when you hear it described. See a set of boobies in a bikini? You want to buy the beer? It's simple. Most people understand the sex cell. It's really straightforward. But the death cell isn't actually any different. It works on the same principle. Your principle that you want to reproduce as opposed to your principle of not wanting to die. That's all it is. And they're leveraging that when they brainwash kids.
Is there only 2 cells?
Yeah. Basically, yeah.
Okay.
Die, reproduce. That's pretty much what most people when people say stuff like men think about sex every 7 seconds. No, you're hardwired to reproduce. That's how it is. And you're hardwired not to die. Name something else. Name another.
The bow cell?
Bose cell. They're using tiny little crappy speakers in a in a 4th order bandpass.
I have a bow cell. I think I understand the 2 cells that you're talking about. I just wondered. I wasn't being, wise to ask you if there was another one, but I think there's only 2.
There is only 2. So it always comes back to those 2 things. I mean, I'm not saying all sales pitches are based on your instinct to want to reproduce or your instinct to not want to die. Some of them just inform you of a product and rely on your desire to want that product. But the point is that the ones that work most effectively do work off those 2 principles. And you can,
Sure.
they're so effective, in fact, that that's why the subject of subliminal messaging exists in the first place. Because they are so successful that you can subtly embed them into an image. I say at a conscious level, but I can't remember the word that's correct. I'm just going to use that word without QE taking the mickey out of me and saying what you mean when you're not asleep. What I mean by that is, without thinking about it, you look at an image and potentially buried within the image there's a naked woman. Now, it's not on the surface level because this is on the side of a cinema advertising a movie, but you're not going to get away with a naked woman on there. If you can subtly incorporate it into the image so that at a certain distance it's more apparent, but you're not going to take it in as apparent. You take it in at a more, I hate to use the word, but a more unconscious level, even though you're actually directly looking at the thing. If anybody wants to know more about this, go and check out Nathan Bell, Reality in Truth YouTube channel. I'll tell you all you want to know. And I think he's got a 2-hour documentary called The Great Subliminal Message Deception. Nathan Bell, Reality in Truth YouTube channel. And he just goes through the handbook. Here you go. Here's what the handbook says. Here's how to do it. Here's an example in a TV advert. Here's an example of how you do it in a still image. Here's an example of it on a Disney cover. It just does it. It just shows you how it's done.
So it's more of a greasing the skids for an idea. Maybe not greasing the skids. Maybe that's a poor analogy. Like it levels out all the background noise. Pushes all the background noise down so that theme gets priority. How about that?
Yes, exactly. So the theme that is being talked about seems like it's in tune or in line with your base instincts to either not die or reproduce. And if you perceive it as being in tune with those 2 things, it gives it a much higher degree of importance when you take the information in. If you're trying to convince somebody that there's a downward acceleration that pulls you to the surface to stop you flying off into space, and then you describe somebody in space not dying, you go, oh, this is really important information. I better pay this a lot of attention.
I got it. Hey, Super Chats, James Mays. Appreciate that, sir. He says, hello, Betty. Good day to the panel. Well, Betty must be out there in chat because she's not here.
I was going to say, don't call me Betty.
Right. And then Flat Earth Travolta, 2 cells, same as Baller's brains. Yeah, I seen what you did there. Yeah. All right, that's it. Who do we got in here? Is there anyone? Brian's in here. What's up,
Neil,
Brian?
Arthur.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Adam, Neil. I was just going to say, you asked, I didn't know it was rhetorical. We got Adam, we got Neil, we got Flat Arthur, we got Brian. Welcome, all of you.
Everyone, hey, Kitty.
Right at the same time, Neil. Wait till Brian starts talking, and then you do it.
I'll try again.
You too, Adam.
Hey, everybody. Hey, QE. It's good to be on the 100 show. Hey, Nathan. How are you all? The ballers think that we think the horizon is refracted. That's what I found out last night.
That's good. That's good. Because if the horizon's refracted, it's not geometric.
Yeah, but because we're making that argument with them so long, they don't actually get that we're not actually claiming that the horizon's refracted.
They are. In so doing, they're destroying the geometry of their claim in the first instance. I mean, it's only been 3 years.
Yeah, but they don't understand that we're not agreeing that it's refracted. We're not making any claim about it other than it's optical. They actually think that we were also claiming it was refracted, but it wasn't refracted off of a geometric globe horizon. They literally, after 3 years, that's as far as they've gotten. Shocking.
Are they proper imbeciles? I don't know what circles you're hanging out in. Where'd you get that from? I haven't heard that.
The people who are commenting on my videos.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
They'll say things like, "Don't you understand?" or // "Don't you accept refraction?" Now, you can, if you choose to, say your refraction is based on a tangent point horizon to give you an R value to derive 7/6 of a radius in standard form to claim that is refraction in your globe model. Now, while I don't deny refraction, your refraction's based on R and requires physical geometry with a tangent point horizon. You're telling me you don't have any more. Okay, you don't have prerequisite for your claim of a globe because it requires a tangent point horizon, you dumbo. It's only been 3 years. Most hysterical example, and it's unfortunate for him because it started off as a mild joke. How's that geometric horizon working out for you for about 12 months towards Ruhif? Eventually, we got what we needed via Brian's video comment section, which is Ruhif quite directly asking Brian why it wasn't okay to have a bent tangent. 3 years, Ruhi. Umbo.
I think what he actually said, if I remember the comment, was, are you telling me that I can't shoot a tangent line or something to a refracted horizon? Which is the same thing, yeah.
He said, are you telling me I can't have a bent line to the horizon? That's what he said. In a video about tangents.
You can't make this up.
Brains won't allow them to accept the contradiction. Okay, we need a tangent point. Right, here's my maths. Here's my tangent point. What's that you say? The horizon's not where it's supposed to be. Yeah, it's refracted. Okay, now back to my tangent point horizon that I need for my maths. That's what Ruhif has been doing for 3 years.
And he's supposed to be an intellectual.
Yeah.
He's a proper imbecile. We're going to be talking about other proper imbeciles here in a couple minutes.
Oh, okay. Which particular imbecile would that be?
Atheists.
Atheist imbeciles.
Yes, sir. We were talking just before the show. I popped in here just to make sure everything was working okay, and I was just thinking out loud that there is not an easier topic or philosophy or position to debunk than atheism. All it takes is one word: information. Now, granted, they don't know what atheism is. The atheists do. They can't define it, much like evolutionists. But how it differs from evolution is that evolution, they don't have a definition at all. They don't know. They can't define it, especially the scientific theory of evolution. But even though the atheists can't define atheism, people still have some kind of clue on what it might actually be. So for evolutionists, I just say, go ahead, define the scientific, or define evolution, then give me the scientific theory of evolution. It takes a little time, right? But with atheists, all I need to do is say information. It's all over. I mean, it's dead. So I don't really understand it, because, for the past 10, 20, maybe even 30 years, I've probably gone back that far with all the shows and all the forums and all the big time, quote unquote, intellectual atheists. They're proper imbeciles. I don't know whether they're fooling their group. Their group can't be that stupid, because all it is all I have to do is say information and it's over. Whatever you dream up what atheism is, it crushes it into the incoherent oblivion. I don't get it. I really don't. Shout out to Tony Wickham. Hey, Tony. Oh, and he says, shout out to Duper Pooper Dunes. Is he back in here? Pooper Scooper? Must be. Shout out to Duper Poons for keeping care homes for the mentally ill still in business. Yeah, I must say so. Is he an atheist too, Tony? I don't know. Do you guys have any? Do you have any? Thoughts, opinions, comments on this?
On information in general?
On the mystery of why there are actual people that think they have a flag in the hill on atheism?
I don't know, really. I mean, there is a God. I'm sure we'll get to the ontological primitives in this show. I'm sure we'll discussing a little bit of the quantum eraser.
No, we won't be.
Oh, okay.
We'll touch on. We'll get indirectly to the ontological primitives. Won't go. I'm going to stick to more or less genetics and DNA with this presentation. We'll go off on a couple little tangents, but all circling around information. We might get to the deeper things on the next Ballbusters, but I really don't have to go too deep with this information. I mean, it's prima facie in your face. Well, duh. I just wanted anybody's thoughts on, I don't know, are these atheists, whatever that is, how are they, I don't even know the question to ask. How is it even possible that in today's age, in 2023, there is anyone that's an atheist? I don't get it. Are they purposely ignorant? I mean, even their pseudoscientists tell them, they preach about information, and everything. It's the foundation. You're going to hear a professional tell you about that here in another second. Quantum mechanics, all about information. DNA, genetics, all about information. That's just surface level stuff that you don't even have to get knee deep into it. Just like your toenail deep into it, and it's the foundation of it. So I don't know. Thoughts, comments?
The point of good evening, by the way.
Good evening, Adam.
The point of interest to me is first, as you kind of alluded to, it's kind of worn like a badge of honor. And I suppose it announces something for the individual. As you say, it's probably, you ask them to describe what it actually means. I think in most people's cases, it means they actually don't believe in God or religion. Which is, even though QE challenged me on this pre-show, kind of what I would always do whenever somebody says I'm an atheist, I'd say, so you're religious then? And whilst QE says I'm doing a burden of reversal proof fallacy here, it's not really, it's their claim. They claim there is no God. I claim there is. There is a creator, and I can demonstrate it, and today's show's great to do that. When they claim I am an atheist, as if it is something proven, I would ask them, can you prove there is no God? which they'll say no. Which I'll then say, so you are religious then? You're holding something you believe, not something you can prove. You're a religious person. And I think taking the tongue out of my cheek, that is fundamentally what it is. It is just another belief system that, at its core, everything came out of nothing. That's what fundamentally you believe as a atheist.
Oh, there's one more fundamental belief, if you're an atheist, whatever that is, that there are only two things that can exist: matter or energy. That's it. I'm here to tell you, atheist, if you're unsure about this, you need to get your shot group tightened. To be an atheist, again, whatever that is, the only two things that can exist in your worldview is matter and energy. You're a philosophical naturalist. You probably didn't know that. So I'm sorry, Adam. Sorry for interrupting.
No, that's my only point, I would say. The interesting thing I said that you alluded to, people wear it as a badge of honor, as if it means I'm a scientist or something like that. You know,
Right.
people, you know what I mean? It means I'm super scientist because I'm an atheist super scientist.
Wonder where they got that idea. Shout out to Flat Earth Travolta for the super chat. Thanks for the super chat, guys. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. Yes, sir. Yeah, I guess that. Yeah. Yes, but my question is, how are they getting others to follow their I would say their logical consistency? There isn't any. So I don't know what I haven't sat down and listened to them. I remember back in the day going watching the videos of the Four Horsemen. You know, Four Horsemen. I can't even remember their names now. Sam.
John Wayne.
Say again?
John Wayne.
No, not that far. No, the four. Let's see. I shouldn't even brought it up because I can't remember their names.
Plague, death, famine. What do you mean, like plague, death, famine?
No, they called themselves the Four Horsemen, and they were atheists. It was a guy named Sam. That's one. Real popular. I mean, out there in secular society, going on TV shows and stuff. Dr. Dennett.
Sam Harris.
Say again?
Sam Harris. Sam Harris.
Sam Harris, number one. Dennett, number two. Who's I don't even know the other. It's been so long. Let me try.
I have no frame of reference.
Richard
to what's
Dawkins.
going on.
Can I ask a fast question?
Yeah, go ahead.
These are supposed to be the four horsemen of whatever, and they're atheists, but they use a Bible reference. Real good. Good on you guys.
Yeah, the Four Horsemen, here they are. Christopher Hitchens, Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, Daniel Dennett. Those
Dawkins resorts to an infinite regression fallacy when he's put to a point. So he's done with. That's that horse slain.
Yes, I got into it one time with loads and hordes of people it was a couple Sam Harris videos. I was just whipping around by their short hairs while I was sleeping. But he just sicked them on me. Right? That's what they do. They sick their hordes of incoherent numpties so they don't have to deal with anything. Right? It was a joke. So once I think it was shortly after that, I just dropped it because it's a waste of my time. Just sit back and feel sorry for the dumb bastards and laugh at them. But yeah, it's, the conversation that sparked the Four Horsemen. So Dawkins, Harris, Dennett, and Hitchens. To give you a good reference. All right. Well, listen. Let's get into the information presentation. You're not going to have to watch YouTube this time. I'm going to go ahead and share. See how the computer reacts. Sharing this in Discord, so you're not time stricken with this. So let me pull that up. Let me hit that, and let me hit that, and tell me if you guys see that. You can follow along with that. You guys in Discord, let me be specific.
Yeah, I've got it. Thank you.
Yes. You can see. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a pain in the butt, right? Trying to get it. Follow it on YouTube. You're 20 seconds behind. That's not good. All right. Let me get rid of that. 1 second, guys. Get my act together here. Bam. So, information. Where should we start? Let's start with one of their pseudoscience priests. That's what I was talking about before. They don't listen to their own pseudoscience priests. And this is toenail level deep stuff when you get into this genre. So, from Professor Paul Davies, Astrophysics, PBS, information is just more than just a description of our universe and the stuff in it. It is the most basic currency of existence. Occupying what theorist Paul Davies terms as the ontological basement of reality. So Nathan, shout out to you. You're all over this, right? He's calling the information the ontological basement. And like I said, Professor Davies is close. But information is the consequent of its necessary antecedent. The actual ontological basement comes from a knower. He is the ontological basement. And intelligent, the creator, just follows logically. It's simple. Now let's define this monkey. Information, and not, again, very simple. Information is merely the communication or reception of knowledge or intelligence. Makes sense? Yeah, you don't have to be a rocket scientist right now. This is just in your face, well, duh. So, let's ask the question, does DNA contain information? Let's find where this information is in our reality. Because that's what Paul Davies said. He must be talking about something, right? Let's get into it in our reality, because all living things contain DNA. Hopefully everyone knows that, right? So does DNA contain information? Let's see. From Nature, the most prestigious quote-unquote science journal in the entire world. From Hood and Gallus. Not only does it contain information, the digital code of DNA. Not only just information, digital information. DNA has two types of digital information. The genes that encode proteins, which are the molecular machines of life. And the gene regulatory networks that specify the behavior of the genes. Right here, I can stop right here, and it's the death knell for atheism. Just right here. Prosecution rests. What are you going to do? Call me names? Red herring fallacy away? That's all you can do. I mean, just your average knuckle dragger is going to know that you're full of shit. It's over. We'll continue because it's fun. Professor Paul Davies again. Did somebody want to say something?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
That's the bit that I found so profound. What's going off there? That's where I said pre-flat Earth. It's this stuff. It just wrecks my head.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you mean evolution? Yeah, looking at the regulatory feedback. Yeah, how that doesn't make sense in evolution. Yeah,
what's that? What's evolution? Let's see if it makes sense.
Yeah, no. Outside of that, just accept that as a given. That's not the point. Yeah, in terms of whatever you understood evolution as, me as a postgraduate pharmacist. Yeah, kind of looking at this and going, this is just not possible via however you define the mechanism of evolution. This is just doesn't is not compatible. It has to be pre-programmed. Where I looked at it, and fundamentally, it's that concept of information.
Sure.
You can make blobs as they kind of envisage life, and the molecular blobs that think.
Molecular
when you start
blobs.
to look at various biochemistry of cells, and you see all of this, it's like it's saying, look, the molecular machines of life and the regularity network, it's like having different departments within the cell, and you get one guy to say over there, stop doing that, make a bit of this, you've little message sent down. The amount of information transferred just for the cell to function within the cell, never mind for it to then function within the organism, and the communication, that level of transfer of information at a cellular level, what I'm saying, is what blew my mind.
What are you saying? The things that are in the cell, these inanimate proteins and fats and carbohydrates, are you saying they're communicating with each other, Adam?
I'm saying within the cell, yeah, there's a feedback. They're not just sitting there yeah, doing nothing. Like I said, like the imagined in the 1800s, there's complex micro machines in there stitching together proteins under a program of what they've been told. Yeah. Remember, this is how the COVID-19 vaccine works. They take in this and they go into the reverse transcriptase process I'm describing, and they re-encode it. And that's what then makes the spike proteins within this Pfizer description for you to then get antibodies to it. Yeah, that's exactly what are they putting there? The information, the spike protein has to be encoded into the machine, and that's what I'm saying. These things are at this cellular level below that. They are amazing, and it's like a smoothly run factory where information within the cell is being transferred to make sure it works properly. Fun.
Yeah. Yep. Yes. Thank you, Adam. So as I was saying, I would prosecution rest with the first statement. I'm not going to. I don't need to go any further, but I will. So back to Paul Davies again. DNA is not a special life-giving molecule, but a genetic data bank that transmits its information using a mathematical code. Most of the workings of the cell are best described not in terms of material stuff, hardware, but as information or software. You see the dichotomy between immaterial and material. We're going to be all over that for the next 40 minutes. Trying to make life by mixing chemicals in a test tube is like soldering switches and wires in an attempt to produce Windows 98. It won't work because it addresses the problem at the wrong conceptual level. Thanks. Appreciate that. Very well said. From Dr. Craig Venter, the geneticist of geneticists. Over the next 60 minutes, I explain how life ultimately consists of DNA-driven biological machines. All living cells run on DNA software, which directs hundreds to thousands of protein robots. Huh? We have been digitizing life for decades since we first figured out how to read the software of life by sequencing DNA. Now we can go in the other direction by starting with computerized digital code, designing a new form of life, chemically synthesizing its DNA, and then booting it up to produce the actual organism. You got some weathered eyebrows being raised out there. You should, if you have a pulse. Let's go to one of the four horsemen of the doofus apocalypse, Richard Dawkins, the blind watchmaker. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. There is enough storage capacity in the DNA of a single lily seed or a single salamander sperm to store the Encyclopedia Britannica 60 times over. Huh. Some species of the unjustly called primitive amoebas have as much information in their DNA as 1,000 Encyclopedia Britannicas. Really? Where's that being stored at, Richard? Richard's a known atheist, too. Dick, right? How the hell can he sit there and say there's information in these cells and be an atheist at the same time? Give me the Richard Dawkins, give me the chemical formula, charge, matter, momentum, or spin of information, of any information. Or if you say it's energy, give me the millielectron volts, kcals, or kilojoules. If you cannot give me one of those, then you're in a paradox. How can you stay within your worldview? How? If you're an atheist, only matter and energy exist. I just gave you the constituents of both. Now we have information existing. The information has to consist of one of those constituents I just spoken of. If it doesn't, if you can't identify it, then you're in a paradox. Simple as that. You can't get out. There are no buts. Back to Dr. Craig Venter. DNA is actually the software of life. Chemically rewrote the genome starting with 4 bottles of chemicals. Literally going from the ones and zeros in the computer to writing the 4-letter alphabet shown in fact that it's totally, listen to this, it is totally interchangeable between the digital world and the biological world. Does that raise the hairs on your back? We then wrote the entire 1.1 million letters of the genetic code, booted it up, and got a new cell driven totally by the software. So that's what we call synthetic life. We actually used living cells to boot it up, but you changed the software and you changed the species. Uh-oh. Thanks a lot for that, Dr. Craig Venter. From the king of information theory, secularly speaking, H.P. Yawkey. There is nothing, nada, in the physico-chemical world that remotely resembles reactions being determined by a sequence and codes between sequences. The existence of a genome and the genetic code divides living organisms from non-living matter. That ought to raise some eyebrows. Uh-oh, there is nothing in the physico-chemical world. That's atheism. If you're an atheist, that's it. That's all you got. That's all that can exist in your worldview. H.P. Yawkey again. The genetic code performs a mapping between the sequences of 4 nucleotides in messenger RNA to the sequences of the 20 amino acids in protein. It is highly relevant to the origin of life that the genetic code is constructed to confront and solve the problems of communication and recording by the same principles found both in the genetic information system and modern computer and communication codes. Uh-oh, SpaghettiOs. Here comes the rub, folks. Codes by Grunwald and Vitania. Algorithmic information theory. We repeatedly consider the following scenario. A sender, say A, wants to communicate or transmit some information to a receiver, say B. The information to be transmitted is an element from some set X. It will be communicated by sending a binary string called the message. When B receives the message, he can decode it again and hopefully reconstruct the element of X that was sent. Listen up, folks. To achieve this, A and B need to agree on a code or description method before communicating. So, therefore, is it possible for inanimate matter, that is atoms and molecules, to make agreements? You got to ask that to yourself. From Abel and Trevor's three subsets of sequence complexity, and their relevance to the biopolymeric information. Genes are not analogous to messages. Genes are messages. Genes are literal programs. They are sent from a source by a transmitter through a channel within the context of a viable cell. They are decoded, like we were talking about just above. See up here? Decoding, transferring communication information, decoded by a receiver, and arrive eventually at a final destination. At this destination, the instantiated messages catalyze needed biochemical reactions. Both cellular and extracellular enzyme functions are involved. That is, extracellular, or for example, extracellular microbial cellulases, proteases, and nucleases. Oh, too far. So the big kahunas, let me break this down for you. For information to exist, number one, you need a transmitter and receiver. And then agreement on number 2, 3, and 4. The medium or mediums of conveyance, the convention, and the meaning. Let me give you a couple examples of what I'm talking about. Now, you've probably seen these before. It's been a while, so you know the answers. Pretend you haven't seen these before. If it's your first time, then I got you. Which one of these is information? Then, why or why not? It's a rhetorical question. See, the first one is this information. I'm not receiving any knowledge or intelligence from this nonsense. None at all. And then number 2, I got this one. Meet me at Joe's for drinks. Yeah, yep. Now, it's not too hyper-specific, but I get the message, right? Why isn't number 1 information? Again, rhetorical, I'm going to tell you. After I give you the cipher for number 1, they both contain the exact same information. Meet me at Joe's for drinks. What's the difference? We didn't agree on the cipher. That is the medium, convention, and the meaning of number 1 beforehand. Remember, I told you we needed to agree beforehand, or you're not going to know what the hell I'm telling you. So if I told you the cipher is every 4th letter with that first message, guess what it spells out? This one. So every 4th letter, 1, 2, 3, 4, M, 1, 2, 3, 4, E, 1, 2, 3, 4, E. See where I'm going with this? So if I give you the cipher, you're good to go. You're going to get that message. Simple as that. This is just nonsense. Follow? You guys getting this? Again, rhetorically speaking. For information, like I said, for information to exist, you not only need a transmitter and a receiver, but they need to agree beforehand on medium, meaning, and convention. Another example. What is the information here? That's rhetorical. This is nonsense. It's nonsensical gibberish. However, if I give you the cipher for this, Jesus saves. That's the message in here. The cipher is every 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and 1st letter. Start over, 5th, 4th, etc., etc. That's what you'll get. Jesus saves. This is a very important point. I see a lot of people and hear a lot of people making a big mistake with this. What information isn't? Your interpretation of the physical effects or consequences of the existence of inanimate objects is not information. It's your imagination. For example, when I put my hand under running water, the water's not informing me that it's wet or that it's cold or that it's hot. When a tree branch falls in the woods, when we're there, the sound waves aren't telling me I've fallen and I can't get up. That's your imagination. Very important point here. You guys might want to rewind this and listen to some of the arguments people come up against information, and they train wreck themselves with that. Another log on the fire. Supernatural prefix super. What does it mean? Over and above. Nature, the physical world and everything in it. So nature is the physical material world. Super is above or beyond that physical material world. Supernatural, above or over the material physical world or universe. I painstakingly did that for you step by step. Therefore, it logically follows that the supernatural is immaterial, completely lacking matter and energy, right? Uh-oh. Norbert Weiner, professor of mathematics, MIT, in 1948. Information is information, neither matter nor energy. Back to the atheists, they can only believe in their worldview that only matter and energy exist. We got information existing here that's neither matter nor energy. We got a paradox, atheists. What's your answer? Everyone get your popcorn. It's going to be hilarious. Therefore, it logically follows that the supernatural is immaterial, completely lacking matter energy, right? Like I said. So as a philosophical naturalist, atheist, again, how do you explain the existence of the supernatural? Information. If that's not a checkmate, that's the biggest checkmate I've ever seen. There are no buts. There are no excuses. There's no way out. So you disagree and object to this, do you? Okay, if information is matter, sorry about that, folks. If information is matter, like I just did before, please post the chemical formula, structure, charge, momentum, or spin. And or if information is energy, then please post the millielectron volts, kcals, or kilojoules. You got to do it. For look out, there's a tiger behind you. We need that right now. Because this is most assuredly information. It satisfies the definition of information. So information is existing. Now, you have to give me the chemical formula or the energy behind this statement. You'd have better chances sprouting broccoli from your armpits. It's all over. That's why I said it's that easy. Please elucidate the information that is the instructions on DNA proper for amino acyl tRNA synthetase and glycerolaldehyde 3-phosphate dehydrogenase. I want you to put that information in a jar and paint that monkey red. That's another sprouting broccoli ordeal for you. Back to Paul Davies, astrophysicist. The way life manages information involves a logical structure that differs fundamentally from mere complex chemistry. Therefore, chemistry alone will not explain life's origins any more than the study of silicon, copper, and plastic will explain how a computer can execute a program. I'll tell you what, Paul, you come up with some good ones, boy. I enjoy some of the statements that he makes. Now, I don't know where he stands on whether he's I can't believe this guy's an atheist. Somebody look it up and let me know. He can't be. If he's an atheist making all these statements, it's got to be Mr. Magoo time. So, information, this is very important. Information or software is semiotic. Semiotic. That is, it's not physical material or physically a part of its medium of conveyance. Letters, numbers, symbols are just prearranged conventions between the transmitter and receiver for communication and to understand the message. The software is the meaning. It's the information. The code is the symbols that represent the agreed upon meaning. See this right here? See this? This is CAT. C-A-T. This is a code. For what? The letters C-A-T aren't spelled out on its fur. CAT is the code name we gave. We gave this as intelligent agents. We gave it that. The message is the agreed upon meaning, the software. It's semiotic. You can't, it's intangible. There's nothing there. Right? In Croatian, it's Mačka. Which one's correct? That's one of my favorites right there. This is my ultimate favorite. So, Paul Revere, what's the code? 1 light or 2 lights, right? Well, what's the software or the information? It was the agreed upon meaning between Paul and the Patriots. Who created the software / message? The 1 if by land or 2 if by sea? Was it the lights or Paul Revere and the Patriots? According to the materialist, realist, philosophical, naturalist, atheist worldview, it had to be the lights. What would have happened if Paul Revere never met, that is, agreed on meeting, medium, and convention with the Patriots and sent lights just arbitrarily signals, the 1 light or 2 lights out from the Old North Church? What would have happened? If you had even seen them, if you were even there. Not much, right? Save for we might be having tea and strumpets daily. Moreover, like I said above, was it the lights, that is the medium, that coordinated the meaning or the meeting? This gets off into complete abject proper absurdity. Again, information is semiotic. It's not a physical entity or part of the medium of conveyance. Photons from Paul Revere's lamps weren't physically carrying information on its backs. The lights were just the medium used to signal the intelligent agents, who then assigned the pre-arranged meaning. That now information, right now, then information, it exists now. It is only then you know which path. You like what I did there, didn't you? You're looking at a code right now. It's called the English language. The software or information is the preemptive, agreed upon convention so we can understand the message. It's semiotic. Without meaning, convention, there is no information or code. It's utter noise. Code. I bet you've heard this come out of my trap before. Code, information, or software is always, ever sourced by intelligent agency, without exception. The exact same concept here. CCU, CCC, CCA, CCG, the genetic codes, that equals proline. That's an amino acid. CUU, CUC, CUA, CUG, UUA, UUG, that equals leucine. Another piece of information. Or amino acid, I'm sorry. That's what it means. What's the connection? UAA, UAG, and UGA, that means stop. What is the world is going on here? Because that's what's happening. Where's the connection? Where's the symbolic logic connections? There aren't any. What are the chemical connections? Guess what? There aren't any. There are no physical chemical links between the code and amino acid or instruction. Moreover, the laws of chemistry and physics and chemistry, like I said, they contain no symbolic logic functions. I can't believe I even had to say that. Ed Lewis, my guy, PhD genetics, Nobel laureate. This guy was something else, boy. If you want to get into some serious genetics, look up Ed Lewis and his work. This is just one profound statement. I can remember reading it for the first time because I had the concept in my mind, but I couldn't articulate it correctly. He did. From Caltech. Listen closely. The laws of genetics have never, ever depended upon knowing what genes are chemically, and would hold true even if they were made of green cheese. Ed Lewis, sir, I salute you. Yes, I couldn't have said that any better myself. I love it. That, you know what he's saying there? The physical, chemical DNA molecule is merely the medium. It's absolutely arbitrary. It's the same as someone writing Here we go again. Look out, there's a tiger behind you with chalk, sand, Cheerios, Etch-a-Sketch, M&Ms, 3/4-inch nuts, ad infinitum. It's totally arbitrary because you'll get the same message whichever I use as long as we've agreed upon it. Another shocking one from Roger Sperry, PhD neurobiologist, another Nobel Prize winner. The meaning of the message will not be found in the physics and chemistry of the paper and the ink. Huh? Starting to come together for you? To say the physical chemical forces are responsible for the message or information or the meaning is tantamount to viewing a magnetic board with the message, "Be back later, gone fishing." The instructions are on the table. Have the exponentially functionally specific complex space shuttle built when I return. Have a nice day. You then conclude, nobody's in the room, that the force between the magnets of the letters and the board is responsible for the construction or arrangement of the letters and the message thereof. Is that your story? If it is, I suggest you keep it to yourself and never, ever even whisper such in the galactic vicinity of a mental health professional. Information is the consequent of its necessary antecedent, intelligent agency. Code contains information, such as a book, Morse code, instructions. Information always has an author, intelligent agent. DNA is a code, therefore DNA has an author. Tried debunking that. The response, no one has ever seen the creator, therefore cannot be validated. I would beg to differ. Jesus Christ. But fair enough. However, the compelling factor of the matter is information existing. DNA, the hallmark of life. Who instantiated the code? Por favor? It doesn't logically follow that because he doesn't reveal himself currently, physically, to then ipso facto conclude he doesn't exist or no evidence exists, that doesn't make any damn sense. Remember, the consequent information only follows the necessary antecedent, intelligent agency. My argument is intelligent agency and information, and they are exhibit A to friggin' Z. The simple refutation. You walk into a restaurant, open up the menu, and read Peking duck with roasted garlic for $28.95. Information. That is information. Then conclude, until you see the specific intelligent agent that wrote it, that there's an equal chance that the ink, paper, and glue molecules that make up the menu are responsible for the construction, arrangement of the letters, and the message thereof. See mental health professional, whisper, etc. above. DNA contains information, algorithm, programs, within programs, in subfolders of programs. It has enough functionally specific complex information, 1/1000th of which would make Einstein blush, in a teaspoon to fill a stack of books from here to the alleged distance to the moon and back 500 friggin' times. Your conclusion, absent the specific intelligent agent who wrote the menu, ribose nucleobases and activated phosphates, that's the ink, paper, and glue molecules in the menu, if you weren't following, authored the menu and instructions DNA. Shroom-induced coma is being kind. I apologize in advance if my next statement offends you, everyone watching or will watch. I mean no harm, insult, or malicious intent, as far as you know. However, there comes a time to put away childish things and ideas. So, if you're 10 years old or older, and this doesn't have you on your knees in less than a plank time, then you need to check your pulse, or whether you have a brain. If you have one and can't reconcile this, then turn your tricycle in at the next depot and report to the who and where the fuck am I institution immediately. Because I can't break this down any further. The end. Have a nice day. Questions, comments?
Like the parallel with the ink, paper, and glue molecules being responsible versus the lights for 1 by land or 2 by sea or whatever it was, the code. When you compare those two side by side, it really does make a lot of sense to a layman. And I'm a layman in this. I don't understand the majority of what you're talking about when you get into the nitty gritty of phonetics. You know, it goes straight over my head. But when you break it down with such a simplistic example, you go, yeah, I get it. The conveyance and the convention don't have anything to do with the agreed upon notions between the two parties for the communication to take place in the first place. That isn't the lights flashing giving you the information. It's the guy with the switch and the agreed upon convention. I mean, I don't know if this is going to be something that happens in this show, but when you get to things like evolution, you're talking about someone without definition working outside of some of these conventions that have been derived. I thought that's where you were going actually when I can't remember which part of the presentation it was, but started to talk about the cat, right?
Mm-hmm.
I thought that's what you're going to branch into. So, you know, we've arbitrarily ascribed this name to this thing, cat. Okay. So what else have we got that's like a cat? Well, let's say we've got what's a wild cat that's quite vicious, that's about size of a domestic cat. Can anybody name something like a
Lynx?
snow leopard or something like that?
Lynx?
Lynx, perfect, Darwin. So there's another one. You've got something that's similar but not the same. Lynx, right? Similar size to a domestic house cat. It doesn't matter if it's not. That's part of the example. We've got this convention that we've arbitrarily ascribed to these two things. Now we step outside the convention and say, no. One turned into the other. You're like, well, the what? The arbitrarily ascribed description of a thing turned into a different arbitrarily ascribed description of a different thing. It's like, what the hell's going on? That's when you asked earlier when you were not grilling, but you know, quizzing Adam on it. I thought that's where you were going with that. Working outside the convention of it's the taxonomic classification system, I believe.
Yeah.
Yep. First you assign these classifications and then you out of nothing speculate how one turns into the other. I mean, that follows logically, right? Not really though. But I wanted to add that information.
Go ahead, Arwen.
Right?
Sorry. Yep.
Sorry, yeah, but information is like you need a cipher because anything can be information. Anything can be used to communicate some kind of message. You don't have to even use language. You can use rocks or leaves or something.
Yep.
But you need the other one would need to know that you are capable of communicating a message through said medium. So you need that convention or a cipher in order to be able to decode such messages through non-language communication. So information is really all takes place within the consciousness.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
That's where the real information is. The substance is not essential.
Yep.
That's very interesting about it.
Yeah, very cool, isn't it?
That's the mind-blowing part of biology. Okay, because we can use the analogy of a book or a message, etc., to simplify and just ignore the majesty of what's occurring. This isn't two people communicating a message. This is molecules talking to each other. Yeah. It's beyond belief when you look at the communication. I prefaced it when I interrupted at the beginning. This communication is beyond belief. It's not just a simple set of instructions. It's feedback. What's that feedback based on? It's a set of rules already written to rectify any feedback mechanisms. Where are those rules from? Where are they stored? This is all happening, not in a multicellular organism as the way to comprehend, yeah, but within the cell. It's communicating this information. And that's what I think is the most amazing. Whether it's, as the guy said, we can use cheese. We could use cheese to encode it. We could. And we use recombinant DNA technology now to make proteins like insulin and stuff using this code. What if GACTG equals insulin, for example? What we couldn't do ever, would have no concept or even ability to imagineer how we could change this. What we couldn't do is change the code so that PAGTCCD made insulin. That is the thing we'll never get. In all the things we do, we're just touching on the surface of trying to understand this language. We can't control it. Best we can do is bastardize it. Certainly would never be able to reprogram it. The thought of reprogram is where do you start? Do you get me?
Shout out to Tony Wickham. Adam, he sent you a message, man. This was a little while ago. Sorry, Tony. I was doing the presentation. I couldn't see it.
On screen, John, so I can follow up after you read it.
He said, Adam Meakin, read my comment out at 20.37 timestamp. And it's funny how they show a monkey to a human, but not a single cell to an ape.
Comment was, monkeys destroy evolution as they've never evolved.
All life destroys evolution.
What's that?
That's right. The evolution is the counter opposite of everything that is logical about life and design.
That's the best definition I think I've ever heard.
Right, because entropy basically dictates that you can't mutate into something more complicated.
Well, wait a second. You'd have to say they're assuming that evolution has something to do with mutating. That's why I asked you what evolution was.
Well, it's like asking what's the globe model, okay? That's not my problem. I don't believe in it. I just know like how people operate using it and how they think using it. Like on what typical superficial conceptions the concept rests. Like on the idea that things just mutate and they change and then they become more complicated. That's really where it starts. That's the foundation of the conception of evolution.
You sure about that?
Sudden change and it becomes more complex. That's the foundation.
You sure about that?
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, citation, please.
No.
No.
No, I don't do citations. This is how I thought of evolution.
Oh, gotcha.
Whenever somebody's talking about it, that's really the suggestion. That the whole thing, all life, basically came from almost nothing and then became more complicated over time, which is mutation to become more complex.
Life came from almost nothing. Like that one.
Yeah, from goo or whatever they say, you know. But that's the point, that it becomes more complicated through mutation. And that is a ridiculous suggestion because it's not going to happen. Mutation only takes away information, complexity.
Oh, you're getting down a rabbit hole. You're going down something they haven't defined it yet, so just chill out.
Okay,
fine. So, Flat Earth Travolta, shout out. Hold on. Shout out to Flat Earth Travolta. I hadn't thought about our inability to reprogram a cell. Very cool. Thanks, Adam.
Yeah, we're talking about
I know.
I want you to go into this anyway, Adam. It's because it's you that originally told me about this. In terms of you're talking about a process of defects as opposed to a process of finding perfection. Anyway, I want you to talk about it because you're far more learned than I.
I'll stick with analogies. We can only talk in English to each other. We only talk in English. But John pulled that thing up where he put that gibberish up. But we had this extra code, which changed the code and the meaning of the code and how the code was interpreted from transmitter to receiver. So even that gibberish could make sense. This is what we can't do in a cell. The communication, the method, the language to be used is set. It's been defined previously. I say, and that's amazing, because it's like I say, it's not down to just basic, down to the cellular level, even down. You see, there are rules. There are a language of how molecules behave. You know, those rules were set. How a charge of an electron would balance against another. Everything goes down to, because these things then roll on to how molecules align and how you read the code. But in response to the thing, what you can't do is say, right, cell, talking in English, but I'd like to now talk in French. Can you? And here's the French. Yeah, the program is within the molecule to me, even down to that level. It's inherent within the molecule to align in this way, particularly when you talk about proteins. They chunk together on purpose. You can cut them in certain places with certain other proteins, work in amazing ways. That's how we do recombinant DNA technology. You know, we understand how these molecules react to each other. And that's how we can, and fundamentally, how we can just adapt that code. We find the bit for human insulin. We discover what that long bit of code is, and we stick it into a bacteria to make it. But we could never, and this is the point, reprogram the cell itself. Just have our own cell with its own program that made those same proteins. That's not achievable, because we couldn't underwrite the underlying code of how molecules should behave. Proteins, yeah,
Right.
Done rambling.
Yeah, and even with like recombination technology for genetics, you're going to end up downsizing the total amount of genetic information, pretty much, during anything you're going to do with it, right? You don't
We nick
add
bits,
genetic
don't we?
information. You always take away or recombine whatever, but you can't grow it bigger.
And that's the good thing in it. So if we are making our own and starting our own code from scratch, they talk about what we know. You talk about junk DNA. Not junk, because we learn more and more and more. So all that programming for the cell to work and encode has to be written. And maybe that is all that back programming within what they call junk, or actually works. It's all the programming. You can't just write the top headline you're encoding.
Right. Yeah, and look, the whole junk DNA was really an early kind of observation, and it was before they figured out that there was such a thing as epigenetics, and that the whole code turned out to be much more complicated. So there is definitely no junk DNA. It's just, it was like an early term for the stuff that they didn't understand anything
Early
about.
term for ignorance. They really stepped into it with that. I don't think I did a partial show on that, didn't
Biological dark matter.
Yeah. So the moral of the story is, how can you be an atheist coherently in 2023? That's my question.
So QA, hi.
Yes, sir.
So if information, the reason that this one word information destroys atheism is because information is not physical, right? That's the whole point.
Correct. That's one major facet. Yes, it's not matter nor energy. Yes, and it exists.
So why can't we use a word like logic or mathematics, or even abstract words like happiness, peace, love? Why don't they follow the same criteria?
They can't. I don't know. They must not be able to connect it. They're proper imbeciles. Is what I let out with. I can't put it into language their obtuseness with this well duh. How about that?
Okay, so even logic does the same job then,
Yeah,
doesn't it?
go out. Well, give me the chemical formula for the syllogism.
Right, Daniel, right. Yeah.
Oh boy. Yeah, like I said, it gets off into it's absurd.
Syllogism, you see.
But
Greek
then,
code again, Arthur, isn't it? And say,
no, I get that, but I'm saying we cannot use logic as an independent variable, do we? Somewhere, but we do use information as an independent variable. So I
Yeah,
want to know the
that's
difference.
yeah, we do. We can. Yeah, because it definitely exists. That's the it's the irony of it all. Is how I like to describe that. Because you're on to something
God
there.
giving you a little bit of a, in this case, saying, look, you've looked at this information presentation, you've considered it all. Does, from a very philosophical point, information actually exists in the real world? And there is a experiment to demonstrate that it does. It does have an effect in the real world. So, a little bit new agey that, but that's what it's presenting, Arthur, isn't it? If you're going to call that aspect in.
Well, the funny thing
So
is
how
that.
about
Oh, sorry.
how? Let me just complete this one. So how about an experiment? I'm being cautious using that word experiment, but just bear with me for now. How about an experiment in which they show that just speaking good words and bad words and neutral words to plants or maybe rice that you have kept in water does have some actual impact.
We're
So
gonna head off
there
the
we can say,
reservation here, man.
Right. But you can make information by you could make literal information out of nothing without even a cipher by, for example, going in nature and then suddenly putting stones that are on the ground in like a perfect order, which is very untypical, right? And then if somebody else comes across that, they'll notice like, whoa, the way these stones are ordered, that's not natural. So then you have like an order which is a degree of information without having any content to it. It's just
Nope. Remember, what's the definition for information? I'll get back to you in a second, Flat Earther. What's the definition for information?
Well, it takes place within the consciousness.
No, that's not the definition of information.
No. I don't know.
There's a pre-agreement, Owen. That the reason the guy put those stones was to tell you to duck. There's a big bear behind you.
That's hilarious. I mean, it's just, it becomes something without a code creating order, and that will be recognized.
Yeah, but there's no information there.
No, but in a way there is, because
no, in no way there is.
No, but there's no specific medium for it except for objects.
Yeah.
It's just putting things in order, which becomes recognized.
Okay. Here's my question to you. I said define information, and you said, well, you must not listen to the presentation. I'm going to tell you what it is. It's the communication or reception of knowledge or intelligence. So you can buy these rocks. What did the rocks tell you?
Can I just maybe clarify the point?
Orders things in a very specific
Remember,
way.
there's different types of order.
Orderly.
Remember, there's different types of order too. We won't go down that road, but go ahead, Adam.
Just to distinguish it, so me as the person coming across the rocks, I can look at it and gain information, as you say, by its distinctness and its layout. Another human has been there. Yeah, that's one type of information that I've gathered. What we're talking about here, specifically in terms of information, is information that means one thing from one person to another. Now, because there was no pre-agreed code, whilst you may have the information that somebody's been here and put some stones down, you don't know what the information about how the stones are laid out means. And it's the layout of the stones or the cheese or the proteins that encodes the information. You're looking at the information as somebody's messed with the stones. Valid information, but there's no transfer from person A to B, just an acquirement from person B. Done.
Right, no, I agree. It's like a that's why I tried to say it's like a preliminary. It's if there was like a code of laying down stones that's generally known and people talk about it in the pub and they do it sometimes. And
So
then you find
there
that
you
in
go.
nature, then it suddenly has a language.
That's the information. The word you heard in the pub that if you lay down stones.
Right.
That's the information that's been transferred that's relevant. Yeah. Because you've had that communicated to you. There's a pre-agreement there. Even if it's just a rumour in the pub.
Shout out to Tony Wickham. Adam, like you say, the code is there, period. Hardwired information. Thanks, Tony. Back to, I didn't want to quash Flat Earther. You were taking us off the reservation. You were the conductor, right? Where are you going with this?
I just want to understand what's the difference between something like information which exists being non-physical and also logic which also exists and is non-physical. But we do not use logic or maths or even abstract ideas like love or peace in as independent variables in any kind of scientific experiment. But we do and can use information. So what is it that differentiates information from all these other words that I used? If any comments on that?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think about the love thing. Maybe somebody else can speak to that. I thought you were talking, the thing I was talking about was you said talking to plants and ice cubes and stuff, and that's what I was talking about.
Because there we can formulate something, because there we can formulate some sort of, excuse me, Adam, but there we can formulate some sort of a cause and effect relationship, maybe, that what we are saying, we are passing on information in a way which is actually causing the plant to develop or retard. Right.
Retard growth. Okay. All right. Go ahead, Adam. You wanted to pipe in on something.
I'm working on what he's saying and the analogy of things, Arthur. So I was to say to you, could I, and it doesn't matter which kind of love, could I have 4 terabytes of love? Can you quantify love in the same way as you can quantify information? To then maybe take it to what you're suggesting, such as experiment, but maybe not even that far. Can we even quantify it in the same way? Can we measure it in the same way?
Well,
Can we measure love?
the definition is different.
Can we quantify or measure information?
Just stick to
How much?
the difference between logic and information. If you throw in this spurious love concept, it just throws off the discussion a little bit. Is it okay if we don't cover that?
Well, that's why I wanted to just get rid of it, because it's ambiguous, isn't it?
Yeah, I kept that word separate. That's why logic and maths are the primary words I want the difference between.
Indeed, and that is a good juxtaposition to discuss. But when you throw in love, it's like, well, that's a completely different concept. It's like saying, well, that was a good way of putting it, actually. It's like, give me 20 terabytes of freedom, please. Yeah, that does away with that part of the discussion, so we can move on with, well, how can you slip in logic as an independent variable just to keep this back on track? Ed, Adam, and Arthur.
So I wanted to ask Adam, can we measure or quantify information?
And we measure or quantify information.
All
Well,
depends on the
we can
category of
ascribe
information.
an amount to it in the way we've encoded it, as I referred to terabytes. I suppose that kind of undermines any comparison. We've got information, which is to convey something. We've got logic,
I think
which
it
is
will go back.
a set of rules for
Information.
set of information, to evaluate information. Now, in this case, the preset agreed rules of information that you convey to define logic, there for you to evaluate things that maybe you've not pre-agreed with people, otherwise there'd be no need for the logic. I suppose fundamentally, logic is a pre-agreed set of rules to apply to non-pre-agreed information.
But what are the three criterion established that denotes an independent variable as an independent variable? There's three of them, right? I think it's important to bring these up. So number one, it's your supposed cause. Number two, the researcher must be able to vary or manipulate it. And number three, the independent variable must demonstrably exist. So there you go. Lay that groundwork.
Oh, well, you see, the third one ruins it for logic, doesn't it?
But
It's
isn't this question
pre-agreed.
basically a matter of like the category within the information?
Yes,
Because,
it is. I agree. Yeah, that's right, Arvid.
There's like the complicated structure of an information, like it has multiple layers, right? And like the composition of how words, like there's so many letters in the alphabet. But the actual meaning, which is where information also comes in, that can be like multiple layers of complexity, requiring more data for one layer and even more data for another layer. So it becomes really complicated like that.
It's
If you're
really
going to try to
quiet, Arwin.
quantify it.
It is quiet, isn't it? Oh, and I'm seeing it is that it's logic is pre-agreed rules. Yeah. So that transfer of information to give pre-agreed rules to deal with information that hasn't been pre-agreed with yet. How to deal with it. It doesn't put it into reality. It puts it into a different class of methodology, as opposed to supernatural. There's nothing supernatural about logic. It's logic could be different. Yeah, we can. Yeah, I don't know how, but it's a man-made construct. Logic we apply to information, not. And as you say,
No,
it is
I think the laws of logic are not man-made. The laws of logic are not man-made, are they?
I don't know. Who made them?
Oh, that's
They
a
aren't.
Define logic without the math.
that's a deep question right there. So logic is not man-made.
What logic does an amoeba have? Does an amoeba know of
Exactly.
logic? When we talk about single cells and we talk about transfer of information, we can demonstrate transfer of information down to the cellular level or subcellular level. And we do the same with logic.
So define logic.
Right.
I don't know.
That would be my
Yeah, that
next
would be
question. You would have to define logic first, correct?
I think so.
From the surface, I'd say that logic really exists in the mind of man. That there is where it is, the structure of it. Like without a mind to see the logic, there is arguably no logic.
So I quickly pulled it up from Oxford Dictionary. Logic, reasoning conducted or assessed according to strict principles of validity.
You define rules.
No, define reasoning.
Divine validity.
You know, just go to reasoning.
1 second. What does it say in dictionary.com? The science that investigates. The science that investigates the principles governing correct or reliable inference.
Yeah, that's not a science, but we understand what they're saying. Yeah, but that reliable inference is reasoning. So, what reasons?
You can't define any of these things without appealing to intuition, which proves a knower in the first instance.
Yeah.
So they're inherently tapped into. They're not arrived at. They're just a natural faculty of the mind.
Exactly. That's my point. We did not create it, but we tap into it.
So,
happen with a
so we
quick definition?
distinguish it then.
Oh.
Oh, that's a good point, Revolta. Yeah, that is a distinction, and it's what Arwin said. It's a construct of man in his mind, because one man's logic can be different to another's. The information is pre-agreed. Yeah, that's the differential I draw.
No, Adam. Anarcheia est logos.
One man's logic is not necessarily the same as another's.
Yeah, but that's a misuse of the term logic.
Okay, well, what is logic then?
Define logic.
Can I say a
We've
few
got to
things?
go.
I just did. Reasoning conducted or assessed according to strict principles of validity.
What
Is
are those
that a
strict principles
scientific
then?
definition?
That would be the next question, wouldn't it?
There you
Gonna
go.
say
Is that a
what are they?
scientific definition or like a more communicative-based
right.
colloquial definition, right?
No, it's just a definition. There are no
Right,
science
this is where we
definitions.
get.
Yeah, physics-related definition.
It's not
Like-
physical, so it can't be a
There you
physics.
go.
There can't be a physics-related definition.
Can I jump in with a thought?
Yes.
All right. Question on logic. Logic is self-evident. It's not a construct. It's not our construct. We didn't make it up. Like if, for example, the law of what we call the law of non-contradiction is self-evident. You can't prove it. It's self-evident in itself. So A cannot be B at the same time. It's self-evident, and that's a function of our intellect, where we can use facts and the things that we observe, and then join one together with another thought in accordance with logic, using self-evident truths, like, for example, the law of non-contradiction, right? So we didn't make it up. It's given to us by our creator, by having an intellect. And so I wanted to get on to a very good presentation, Quantum Eraser.
Thank you.
And excellent. And if there's another aspect to it, which you probably, I don't know, I haven't seen all your stuff, but there's another aspect to this. Just have it for like proving the creator, right? If you just prove the creator has all this information, there has to be another aspect for the creator to want, to will, to use that information to create the universe, right? Or the world or whatever, right? So there's an aspect of the intellect in knowing how to do it. God knows everything. But then there's also an aspect of his will in wanting to do it. I can have all the information on how to make a pancake, but I don't want to make pancakes, so I don't do it, So he has to have, there has to be a purpose. We can use, and using just reason and logic, which is not ours. We don't make it up. It's not, and I think Adam said, one guy's logic is different from another. I don't think that's true. Logic is self-evident, it's objective, and it doesn't change. We can use logic to say, well, if we can know that God created a world and he made us in it with intelligence to understand, using logic that someone made this. My dog doesn't know. My dog just wants to eat his food and go to sleep and whatever. He doesn't know about this, but we do. We can know that there's a creator. And so that involves God, and we can know that there must be the information that God has plus the will to do it. So we can infer that God wants us to know he exists. So there was a big argy-bargy the other day on Nathan's show. Some of the guys said, we can't know, and we can't know God, and others said, yeah, we can. I'm on the side, obviously, that we can, because he wants us to know him. He wants us, with our intelligence, we can work out that there must be a will involved in creating the world as well. So if just intelligence on its own, that just makes God just a giant, hard drive or something without any will. So there's the information that God has, but there's also the will to execute and actualize that information. And from that, we can know that God wants us to know him. So he has revealed himself to us through his creation. And then that's not enough. There's also the revelation of our Lord Jesus Christ, who came and expounded upon that basic knowledge that everybody has and gave us the specific knowledge of God himself as who he is. And I was listening to that conversation the other day, like I said, and I just wanted to, I think some of those guys are on this panel now. I just wanted to throw that in there, that we can know God. We can know generally what he wants. The world is a good thing. It's good to have something that exists. Something that doesn't exist isn't good. can't be good. So things that exist are good. And so God must be good, right? In wanting to create a thing, he must be good, right? He must have a good intention and purpose for us. And so I just wanted to throw that in there. And we can know God, and we can know what he wants. Not specific.
Information.
Right, if we can know God, can we finally find out what logic is? Because
Hold
I'm
on,
still waiting.
this is up my alley here. What did you just say?
What? We said, can we go back to what we were talking about, which was defining what logic is? I've heard lots of people say, yeah, you're wrong, you're wrong, your logic's this.
Yeah.
I'm yet to see logic presented other than people do standard hand wave, which is, it's obvious. So we see, we know what information is. We've had a lovely presentation about information. Instead of somebody tell me I know what it is, it's innate. Somebody define logic for me, please, what it is. And QE gave a definition. Could you give it again, QE?
I'm sorry. Yes, sir. I was on mute. Logic is reasoning conducted or assessed according to strict principles of validity.
Fantastic. And that helps me. It does raise the next question. I think that's where this conversation should go. If we're going to use logic, what are those strict principles?
It's self-evident.
What are those man-made constructs that are going to guide our logic? Has anybody got them yet? Or is anybody able to recite them off by heart? Or how many are there? Does anybody know how many there are? Across the board, yeah? Because everybody's jumping in, so go down the queue. How many, before we find them, how many are there?
One, ultimately, it's called order. It's called order.
Logic
is one. So I've got a shout for one.
3. I know 3 laws of logic.
Define
These are not man-made.
There's only one.
Can I
One from
provide
Brian.
context from
One
computing?
from Brian's logic.
I haven't got to say what it is, though. Just give me a second.
Because nobody is yet. I'm just gathering numbers.
Hold on, stop. Let's get some order. We'll go with Arthur first, then the guy who wanted to talk about computer logic, then AI overlord, then Brian. In that order, please.
So I said 3. First one, the law of identity. Second one, the law of non-contradiction. And third one, the law of the excluded middle. These are the 3 basic laws of logic that I know of.
Correct.
You mute AI. Causing a bit of feedback.
Yeah, AI, when you're not talking, go ahead and go on mute. He's right. You're causing a little bit of disruption. Yeah, he is correct.
QE.
Sorry, I just wanted to say that is correct. Good job, Flat Earther. Okay, continue, please.
The next guy was the guy who said I wanted to compare it to some computer logic. Feel free, whoever that was.
Yeah. I don't have any particular assertion on whether we can pick out X number of, fundamental laws of logic that pre-exist or something like that. But just in computer science, information, like the measure, you're talking about terabytes, that's the definition of how many signals can be encoded in a certain space. So like a bit is one signal. If you want to talk about measuring operations on that information, so like logic, that would be talked about in like T-flops or like trillions of floating point operations per second. And those operations of logic that you can do on information can be described a number of different ways. But if you're talking about what are the pre-existing ones or what are the basic ones, you talk about operations that have functional completeness. So if I have a NAND gate that can take inputs and NAND them logically, I can use some arbitrary number of those to encode any computer system in the world. And there are a few different sets that are functionally complete languages that you can then program. You can program any computer language using just NAND gates, for example. So I don't know if that helps the conversation, but
it does a little bit if you can define or qualify something for me. Hello, by the way, Flat Earth Travolta.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you for all your support. Can you briefly try and qualify the difference, because you've given it with a bit or an area of space for the information, and then you've described the logic as the information, but I want, in your words, you to define the difference between the two in such a way that it would hopefully satisfy Flat Earther in terms of his question of why one wouldn't maybe fit as an independent variable. I don't necessarily want you to give the scientific bit at the end, but just to find the difference between the two, the information versus the logic. Can you do that?
I can attempt to. I don't have a degree in this, but I use it pretty often. Like, so the information is like a 1 or a 0. Am I going to give you a 1 or a 0? Is the sky blue or is it green? Whatever, that could be encoded in a certain number of bits. The operation on that is the logic. So like, if I want to determine, if I tell you that the sky is blue and the sky is blue, I can determine whether I'm lying, right? That's an and operation. The sky is blue. I also told you the sky is blue. In that case, I'm not lying. That operation that I did in the middle there is the logic. It's an operation on the information as opposed to the information itself.
It's as opposed to the information itself. It's the process, the operation that follows, utilizing the information itself.
This goes back to Shannon information. If that gentleman knows who Shannon is, his information is negative log squared times p. It speaks to signal space and probabilities, but it has absolutely nothing to do with meaning or function.
Yeah,
Signal
that's
space and
channel
probability.
right?
Indeed. I don't want to rush past you, but I know we've got AI and Brian waiting. Do you want to just add at your point, if you don't mind? I'm sorry to be rude, Travolta.
No, I said what I needed to. All good. Go ahead.
Fair enough. Thank you very much. And that was brilliant. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
AI. It was. Thank you. AI, you're next then, Brian.
Oh, so what he was describing with computer information is basically just if-then statements. So if this, then this, and
Your robot thing.
you don't understand that. Yeah, it'll be never mind. I'll be back later.
Yeah, drop out and come back in, AI, please.
Well, hopefully we'll get him next. Brian, you still there? No, I've gone out to get something to eat and drink and stuff. Okay, Brian. Well, hopefully we'll speak to you later. Is there someone else? Did I miss someone in the queue?
No. Well, me maybe. But it's like an old remark against this. What is it? Like Mike was talking about earlier. He started out saying like, no, the information doesn't just exist in our mind, but then all of his description are all of things taking place in the mind, and then how you connect to God in the mind that way. I just thought it was kind of ironic that he didn't actually disprove his original vantage point, like why he made the argument. Because it really does only take place in the mind, the logic and all that.
Maybe
Right?
not the
That's where
logic
you
of the
find it. He
information.
didn't make it, but there is where it is.
Maybe not the logic, but the show and indeed the title of the show is about the information itself. And in the same way as often on Flat Earth debate, we talk about all roads leading to Flat Earth. Or when you talk about the roads that lead to God, the path is information, that is the road that you're walking along. And when he says, well, God wants you to know he's there, that's it. That's with the subject matter of the show in mind, what I'm talking about when I say all roads will lead to God via the path of information itself. It's a critical detail. I can understand QE's exasperation when he's like, well, how can an intelligent atheist exist? I can't remember how you phrased it, actually, QE. It wasn't that, but something similar.
Yes, that's my question.
Right. But that's like where we ended up with, and I agree with that, right? I agree. It is the path to God. This is how you figure it out. But technically, it does really only exist in the mind, and without a mind to see it, you can't prove it's there.
I just add something, Nathan.
I was just going to drop in that quote, the first sip of the cup of natural science will make you an atheist, but at the bottom of the glass, God is waiting for you. Paraphrase that badly. But...
No, that was pretty good. That was by Werner Heisenberg.
But just add to that in relation to logic in this. Arthur was saying there's three core principles. It has been discussed that there's four, the individual. That being how you then interact with logic, and the basis of that is on scripture, and from the derivation of the word logic, logos. In the beginning, it was the logos. So that to me, kind of what is why what for is important with logic, the individual based through what is another gift from God. Done.
So you do
Sorry,
remember
hold on,
you
Arthur,
do
I'm sorry. Hold on 1 second, as we've got AI overload back and I can hear his mic's reasonably working well. Go ahead, AI. Right, Adam.
Oh, where do we leave off? Otherwise, I was going to answer the other thing. But anyway, the explanation of the computer logic is just if-then statements. So it's a contingent necessity. So if proposition A is present, then contingent B must be in necessary or the effect that is produced by the machine, right? So if A, then B. If A and B, then C. If A and not B, then D, right? That's all computer logic is. But those if-then contingencies, right, they're conventions. They're agreed upon by the people who program the thing, right? Now, when you try to do that in real life with the faculties of the mind, you end up at the beginning where you don't have two parties that agree upon the convention. And so you need to reach into the supernatural to get the initiating party for the laws of logic, right? So that being said, that means that the laws of logic are supernatural and they can't be changed by humans. They can be misunderstood by humans, sure. And the matrix of validity that you apply can also misinform your logic. For example, you might say the supernatural doesn't exist, right? So you've thrown that out as a valid statement in any logic string that you put your premises into. If you put your premises into a formal logic string, the conclusion follows of a necessity if the premises are true, but you have to prove the premises true in the first instance. So if you throw out supernatural or you throw out all kinds of options, then your logic is going to be very limited. And that's why people will say, oh, the flat earth isn't logical or God isn't logical, because they've ruled it out a priori rather than actually following the evidence where it leads. So they're using their mental faculties, but limiting them because they're unwilling to accept certain truths. But all that really just proves is that the supernatural exists and that the human mind is a derivative of a greater mind. And of course, there's scientific proofs for that as well. There's logical proofs for that as well.
Well, that makes perfect
Very well.
sense.
Wayne is
because
back.
Information
go ahead.
takes place in the mind, but you can still, even though receiving it there, deny it, right? It's still up to the person how they regard it. And that's but it takes all place in the mind, whether you deny it or
Sure, but they don't create it, they intuit it.
so Arvind,
Wayne is back.
Arvind, the very use I'm sorry. Arvind, the very
Just,
usage of the term mind, just the usage of the word mind itself, it is not your brain, the 1.4 kilograms of gray matter present. The very usage of mind means that you have the ability to reason. Even the basic definition of mind is going to lead us there. And how do we reason? From tapping into the logos, which is why in the very beginning I said that in the beginning was the logos, which is the root word for logic, rightly pointed out by Adam. But back then, AI overlord said that it is wrong usage of the word logic. It is not exactly the same, but I wanted to point out that it was just the root word for logic.
Yeah, but here we have some
Hold on,
problems
guys.
with
Hold
his
on, Arwen.
Look, let me
translation.
address
Go
me,
ahead.
if I may.
Hello, there's 3 people talking. Go ahead, AI.
Yeah, I wanted to chime in on that because that's a great example of what's known as the lexical fallacy. So when you say logic comes from the word logos, in the beginning was the word, and the word in the Greek is logos, therefore in the beginning was logic, is to misunderstand the idiomatic sense in which the phrase the word of God is used. The word of God is not referring to logic in that term. It's referring to an agent, which was known to the people in which this was read. It's an agent that appeared numerous times throughout the Old Testament. It's a person. It's not an abstract entity or an abstract concept or a set of rules. It's an agent, a sentient entity. The Word of God is a sentient entity. Okay, that sentient entity became flesh and dwelt among us, known as Jesus. Okay, it's not a disembodied force. It's not a series of coded information strings. It's a entity that has a sentient mind.
No, it's a Greek word.
What are you basing that on?
It's a Greek word called logos, and that can be
Yep.
interpreted in a number of
Yep.
different ways.
No. It's not about the word, dude. It's not about the
I'm gonna let
word.
you speak. That could
What are
be
your sources for that?
interpreted in a number of different ways, as just we
Or it
do.
gets everybody in a hissy.
Or did some
I'd
knobhead
like
just
to know where he got
need
that
to
from.
overtalk and ejaculate over
Oh,
the
I
conversation?
explained where I got it from, and it seems to have been summarily ignored.
When you've all
Yeah, that's
done,
right,
I'll
yeah.
try and make my point. But carry on, everybody.
Adam, we've got a conversation between Adam and AI. Arwin wants to get your word in as well, so once that's concluded, Arwin. I'm still in the queue.
We're going a bit too far on this. The word is logos, right? And we're trying to stick with the word logic. Okay. Now,
Right.
yes, an individual could.
That's what I'm trying to do.
You're just going to have to let him get to the end of his point, though, AI. Go ahead, Adam.
You could interpret it like that, but I think for the purpose of this conversation, there's no need to go there to that further meaning. We can stick with the word logos. We could use word as in how's it's taken in the King James, yeah? We could also use it with the words to another translation, discourse or reason. And I think in terms of the conversation we're having, reason is probably the best thing. Now, the point I was making was that it links to the divine, that our reasoning is actually a divine link. It comes from the beginning. And that's why I put 0.4 in. Whether it's that individual, I think you agreed, Overlord, that clouds it or not, for the purpose.
Right.
For me, that logic is again a divine thing, that intuition. If we're going to decide what fits all those criteria, it's hard to define how we do it individually.
Right. If I may.
It can't be defined.
Respond, Darwin, first.
It can't be defined. It can't be defined without appeals to intuition.
Reason.
You know, yeah, it's self-evident. Like it literally cannot be defined without just appealing to itself. And anybody that you appeal to you would assume that they're like flawed in their faculty. There's no way to prove it to them otherwise. You just have to state it, and either they agree or they don't.
Right, Arwin, and then I'm hopefully going to summarize some of these points. Go ahead, Arwin.
Right. So my view on it is that we don't create the order in the information. We are merely the receivers. So I see it as we have a consciousness window, and we get to receive insights on the Akashic library, which would be all the information that and how it orders naturally. Then that would have to be created by a designer originally. We don't make it on the spot. We simply stumble upon what is there and find our way through, really well or not so well, right? And that's how I see that, and that would match.
Yeah, and the nature of it is cyclical and self-caused, unless you have a grounding agent that doesn't need to be caused. Otherwise, you end up with an infinite regression fallacy and a self-cause fallacy.
Overlord, I know we're going to disagree on the meaning of this, but
before you get into this discussion, hold on one sec. Number one, AI, can you mute when you're not talking?
Yeah.
I just want to focus on one part of AI's point that I just don't want to get lost, which is when he was talking about the comparison that the guy Travolta made with the computer in regards to the process of logic versus the process that I'm hoping Adam will expand on, which is in terms of our reasoning skills. So when the example comes with logic process being if A then B statement is predetermined within a process. In other words, if the prerequisite statement of A is fulfilled, B will also be an end result because it's predetermined by the system in place. While that seems like logic based on if and then logic of a computer, well, then it seems like that is also true. However, we as reasoning individuals can assess whether or not B should follow. We might have been brainwashed to accept that B should follow if A is a prerequisite, but it isn't necessarily the case. And our ability to assess both whether or not A has been fulfilled, and if A is fulfilled, whether or not B is even going to be considered, let alone fulfilled afterwards. But in a very basic computer, that quote unquote logic doesn't allow for what we as individuals can do, which is assess and reason. Anyway, Adam, go ahead.
I can't argue with this, but I just want to pull it back, really, to what Arthur brought up. Can we align these two things? Are they similar? Are they judgeable? I would say fundamentally not. Probably to summarize succinctly, I would say that you require information to make logical choices. Where, as we've discussed, though, that logic definition comes from is probably a moot point with regards to, are they very different things? Can we treat them the same, was Arthur's initial point? And I'd have to say, after this good chat, no.
Shout out to Vlad on Flat Earth. He said, this show and FE debate is the best intellectual content on YouTube. Thanks, QE, and everyone involved. Thank you.
Speaking of which, there's a reschedule so that this show doesn't conflict, although as of about 5 minutes ago it started to. So rather than every so often going, oh no, I've got a show that's going to be coming out at the same time as BALLBUSTERS, I've rescheduled all of the second channel Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After shows to now start at 10 p.m. UK time, which is now. So wherever you are in the world, now is the time from now on that the Flat Earth Debate show will run. Also, I've changed a couple of the show times so that, again, it doesn't conflict with the show on this channel. On a Tuesday, Quantum Eraser, what do you call it? I've forgotten the name of that show.
QE Live.
Terrible. QE Live, of course it is. So QE Live on a Tuesday now won't conflict with Flat Earth Debate. Same goes for Flatzoid. There's been conflicts which I can resolve easily by just pushing my less important secondary channel show, which is the Uncut and After show, which will have already reached the members, the people who are more keen to watch it anyway. But that's now an hour later, basically. And there's no Tuesday Uncut and After show because that's moved to Saturday, and there's no Friday Uncut and After show because it seems pointless because there's so much stuff on to choose from that my viewing figures were terrible on Friday, so I've moved that to Sunday. But that means that it's running now. Not that I'm putting any pressure on to end this show. I'm just saying that that's now the time, and it's a useful time to make a note of it as we are live. So yeah, if you wanted to, after the show finishes, of course, tune into my second channel, which is just called Nathan Oakley, so with a space and no 1980 on the end of it. But that's got the Uncut and After show literally premiering now. Can't remember which day because I haven't trained my brain to know which day to relate today's
Good
Saturday
job.
show to. Anyway, there we go.
Conflicting
It
now.
also means that Neil's about to say, it means that people who are returning from work in certain parts of the States can actually watch the show when they get home from work rather than it having been run for an hour and they walk through the door. So there we go.
Yeah, but you should have listened to me and did an extra hour so it's not conflicting at all.
Extra hour? What are you talking about? Let's not get into this, Neil. We're in the middle of a live show.
Can I
It
get
means
things
you're
back on
cutting the
track?
show short.
Oh, yes, you can, Brian. I heard Brian's voice. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wasn't able to talk earlier. I only had a moment there when I was putting in. Yeah,
That's okay. It was a useful opportunity for me to mimic you, which was hilarious.
Yeah, well, the original question was about what are the law? How many laws is there to logic, or what is the law of logic? Some people said 2, some people said 1, some people said 3, someone else mentioned 4. There's only 1 for me. And what I heard in the past 15, 20 minutes, there's a lot of it I would disagree with. I would throw it out as far as logic goes, because, and I don't mean this as an attack on anybody, because I've heard a few different people bring this in, but once you start bringing beliefs into logic, then you're not using logic. They're a belief for a reason. You know what I mean? That's why they're a belief, because you can only pre-assume it. So it's not logic. Logic is one rule, and that is the correct formation of thought. That's it. It's that simple. That's the only rule you need. You don't need to complicate it.
This is the order, the natural fractal order within information that you will stumble upon and recognize, or you don't, and then it's all chaos to you.
Oh my god, dude. No offense, but that was
Somebody said-
philosophically bankrupt.
Why?
Because you just had a tautological definition. You said I don't agree that logic is formal reasoning with strict premises of validity, but I do agree that it's the correct formation of thought. That's literally saying the exact same thing in a different way.
No, it's not.
Okay, then go ahead and explain it.
Because once you bring belief into it, then you're bringing in something personal into it. Logic is something that should be basically across the board. Logic is something everyone using correct formation of thought should agree upon. But if you're
didn't define correct formation of thought.
If you're bringing a belief into it, then that's personal.
But you didn't define what correct formation of thought is.
Something
You're just
that I just did
repeating
a
it.
second ago. I just did a second ago. I just did a moment ago.
So correct formation of thought means is just don't have beliefs.
Correct formation of thought would bring you to understand that trying to bring belief into it is not a correct formation of thought when you're talking about logic.
You didn't define correct formation of thought in the first instance. You're using it without defining
I did
it.
a moment ago. It's
When?
The correct formation of thought, because we're defining logic, are we not? Are we defining logic? Or are we talking
so far, all you said is the correct formation of thought excludes beliefs.
So you don't understand that then? How much clearer do you want me to define it?
I want you to define it at all.
What do you mean?
Define it. You haven't done so yet.
I did.
No, you didn't.
Well, if you just leave me say it again, because maybe you weren't listening because you're too busy being triggered, from what I can figure out here. Yeah, is that I said logic has to be something. The correct formation of thought is something that all people can agree upon. Not all people can agree upon beliefs because they're personal. The correct formation of thought is something that all people can agree upon.
Okay, so the correct formation of thought is consensus. So consensus is your definition of the correct formation of thought.
No, not consensus. Consensus is a different thing. We're talking about using use of logic.
That's literally what you just said, brother.
No, he's not.
No, we're not talking about consensus. Consensus is not using logic.
Oh my goodness! You just said all people agree upon it, and then said that's not consensus. That's the definition of consensus.
That all people, CAN, can agree upon once they use the correct formation of thought.
You haven't defined correct formation of thought yet. So how do they know how to use it? No, you didn't.
I did. I just defined it. I just defined it for you.
You basically said, what's the definition of a circle? A circle is a circle.
You're asking me a question, and when I'm going to answer it, you're jumping in to stop me answering it. Because
I don't want to hear the same thing on repeat.
Saying what I'm saying, because you have a belief.
Nope.
And you're trying to bring your belief into a logical framework.
What belief? What belief? You haven't given a logical framework yet.
You are a Christian. You have a belief in Christianity.
What are you talking about, dude? What does that have to do with what we're talking about right now?
He didn't bring that
up. You brought Christianity into it earlier.
No, he didn't.
What are you talking about, dude?
You brought Jesus Christ into it earlier.
Dude, are you paying attention at all?
I was paying attention, and I listened to it.
So anybody else who is witnesses, when did I bring Jesus Christ into it?
No, that was like Mike.
That was me. I did.
You did, unfortunately, but I don't think it was directly linked to.
No, I answered someone who brought it up. I didn't bring it in.
Well, I heard you mentioning it. And
I don't know. I think it's clear who's triggered. So can you define correct formation of thought for the audience, please?
Are you saying that belief is logic? Because you seem to be trying to defend belief here.
What are you talking about, dude? I want you to define correct formation of thought.
What you're claiming.
I just want a definition of correct formation of thought. Doesn't use the term in the definition.
You had an issue with me.
Hold on, both you stop, please. Just one sec, Brian. I've got to agree with AI. So, in terms of your process of describing this, we do need to know what the correct formation of logic, according to you, would be, as you would define it, for us to move forward. I can't, I've got a horse in this race. I don't care. I'm just saying, in terms of where we're at, that you need to define that because we haven't had it from you.
Well, the correct formation of thought would be as when you use logic, that it would be something that all people can agree upon. Once they use logical thought, which is the correct formation of thought.
Right.
Anything that's incorrect,
But now
any incorrect
you're
formation
creating
of
a
thought
binary
won't
that's
lead you to agreed
unresolvable.
upon it.
You're creating an unresolvable
Sorry, Albert?
binary this way because
Yeah, well,
you're defining something by you are with it or you're against it. You haven't given it
right, which
context.
is consensus.
Well, either it's logical or it's not.
Dude,
Yeah,
There
but
is
that's
no
not
gray
you
area.
haven't defined what those things are. You're
Exactly.
just using tautologies and circular reasoning.
The correct formation of thought, incorrect thought, is not logical. It's that simple.
Well,
Yeah, but
define
that's not
correct thought
defining
then.
it.
The
That's
problem is,
describing it.
I'm defining it, but it's so simple
You're not
that they
defining
can't
it,
accept
dude. 3 people are
the
telling you
correct
you haven't
formation of
defined it
thought.
yet.
So,
You're just
so
Ryan,
tell
you're
me,
just describing
tell
it
me,
in another
tell me
way.
then,
You're
one
not
second,
defining it.
one second, one second, no, one second, one second. So, what would be the opposite of correct formation of thought? Where in the correct formation of thought would there not be logic?
That's a reverse of burden of proof. It's on you to define it, not us.
It is defined. That's the point. Correct
It's not.
formation
Word
of
No,
thought.
it
correct
isn't. You
itself
haven't
can
mentioned
be
Incorrect formation of thought leads to ill logic.
You haven't
The
defined
correct
either
formation of
term
thought
yet, so
leads to
nobody knows
logic.
what you're talking about.
the word
So
correct itself can
the
be
correct formation
subjective,
of thought.
Brian.
Sorry,
I said the word
say it again.
correct
Albert.
itself can be
Hold
subjective.
on, there's
The
too many
word
people
correct.
talking. Let Arthur make his point, and he's addressing Brian. So if Brian could respond, that'd be great. Go ahead, Arthur.
So it was very clear to anyone who was listening that it was circular logic completely, and that's it. Yeah.
We got that.
Okay,
Sorry,
so
Brian.
me saying that that logic is defined by the correct formation of thought. Who can debunk that logically?
But you've
Because
also
if
said
you
that,
try and debunk that, 1 second. Sorry, 1 second, Nathan. Sorry, I don't mean to be rude. If you try and debunk that the correct formation of thought is not logic, then that's illogical.
The word correct itself is subjective, Brian. It can vary from person to person.
Oh,
Yeah, and the problem is
how
that
is it?
if
How
you
is it?
define it
Correct
in a
is
way
correct.
that
It
it's
doesn't
dependent
have a
on
gray area.
everybody to agree, then logic doesn't exist because there
What?
will always be people that won't agree for whatever reason. So
Yeah,
it's
fair.
Yeah, but
I want to harp on what Arwen just said. I want to harp on what Arwen just said. People agree or disagree. You've said correct, and you've said that people agree upon it, which is essentially consensus. So what you've done is you've provided a matrix for validity, which is just common agreement.
No, not common agreement, because consensus is the lack of logic.
Now you're going back in a circle.
Consensus is because consensus is the not correct formation of thought, where
Which
you're
you
just
haven't defined
agreeing
yet.
to something because you're just agreeing to something because other people are.
Okay, let's remove that then, that they're only agreeing because other people agree. And now say the same thing that you said before with removing that.
And let me ask you this then. I'll clear up this now, right? Right. You said consensus. Is consensus the correct formation of thought?
That's you told me that not 3 minutes ago, so
I didn't tell
I'm
you
confused.
consensus. Well, I never mentioned the word consensus till you did.
You did it. You did. You
I
said
didn't say that.
everybody can agree. Everybody can agree is the consensus, dude. For goodness sake.
Once you use logic. Once they're using logic.
Okay, so then define
No,
logic.
not. Once they're using the correct formation of thought.
And then we go back around in a circle.
It's not a circle. It's that you don't understand. When I ask
we have 4 people now telling you that you're in error and you still don't get it.
Yeah, this has become an emperor without any clothes scenario, Brian.
1 second.
This is
When I
becoming
asked
an
you,
emperor
when I
without any
asked you,
clothes scenario.
when I asked you, when I asked you, AI, when I asked you, is consensus the correct formation of thought, you refused to answer.
Dude,
Why
you
is that?
defined it as that.
I didn't define it as that. I never said
Yes,
consensus one time until you said it.
If all people
I
agree that
never said
Proposition A
consensus.
is true and Proposition A is true,
Once
then their
they use
consensus is
logic.
correct.
No. Once they're using logic, then all logical thought will be agreed upon. Once they're using logic.
Right. So then define what that is.
The correct formation of thought.
And we go back to the circle.
Jesus, come on.
Yeah, but no, you're trying to claim I'm claiming consensus, which is the incorrect formation of thought. When
So
I
just
asked
to
you, is consensus the correct formation of thought, you refused to answer because you knew that your
I didn't
argument
refuse
finished
to
right there
answer.
and then. You refused to answer.
No, I didn't.
Hey, let's
So
work
lo-
this
so
out. We're
Brian,
done.
just to-
We're done. We're done. You're going to work this out
just one
after.
last commentary. One last
Listen to
comment.
what I'm
Yeah.
telling you.
He has spoken.
We are done with this topic. You guys can work. Who is talking? Shut the fuck up.
No need.
Now, I'll say it again. This is done. You can resolve it after the show. Everyone got it. Thank you.
With that, I'm going to say first and foremost a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the Ballbusters panel for making today's live show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in the live stream for tuning in, smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, hitting QE upon PayPal and all that good stuff. Obviously, being 100 shows, we'd hope you'd share this far and wide, as it's been a very informative show. Another massive thank you to today's Ballbusters panel. We will see you all in the next Ballbusters.